Gardenia.
So
I hung out on 8th Avenue, so pretty much anything that Gainesville has to offer, I've either lived there or hung out there.
that's so real. And what's important about it, I think, is that you are definitely I would refer to you as like a community expert or a specialist. Like for real, like you're definitely, you know what I'm saying. I would say like the pulse of the community. I mean, you
Absolutely.
definitely would be described as that. So anyway, the East Side Bus Rally. I want to start there, and that whole issue, and which actually ended up being a success story. What can you just give the people who don't know anything about that issue, just a little quick summary of what happened up until then?
Absolutely.
As long as you want.
In September, the Alachua County Public School District made the decision to take away what they called a courtesy bus for students that lived in the Lake Road Terrace neighborhood that actually attends Eastside High School. The manner in which they did is, they just gave the parents a letter and sent it home and said, hey, basically you're going to have to find a way to get your children to and from school.
And you said courtesy busing. Why did you say that like that?
The statement is the way that the state law, or I would say actually it's a law, but it's a guideline. It reads that any school district, if a student lives less than 2 miles away from the school, they're not required to actually give the students a bus. So if a child catches a bus, it's considered a courtesy bus.
Okay.
But I say courtesy in a very facetious manner or in a very snide way, because by all accounts, any GPS system that you use, that the stops are actually 2.1 or 2.2 miles away from Eastside.
Wow. That's very telling. Okay, so, and I really want to point that out. But, all right, can you pick up from there? So they stopped the courtesy busing, and
so then what happened and occurred is, once that took place, there's a few of us that go to pretty much every school board meeting.
Okay.
If we're not there, we actually stream it off the computer. The people that they needed to speak to, that also continued to change. So even one mom, she reached out to Dr. Leonetti McNeely. Dr. McNeely took it on. She's actually a member. She's a board member of the school board.
Can you tell who Mr. McNeely, for the people who don't know?
Yes. So Dr. McNeely is actually one of the school board members on the district. So she's one of 5. So when she actually addressed it with Dr. McNeely, who was actually unaware of it until it was actually brought to their attention. So it wasn't done at an actual board meeting. It was done, I call them closed door meetings.
Right.
Because it's something that I feel like as stakeholders, parents and students should have been aware of, to actually come and give feedback and input before the decision was made, and they were not.
So who, just for clarification, is who is making those decisions when it's not up to the member of 5 to vote on it? What department?
For this particular issue, it was actually operations.
Okay.
And the assistant superintendent, Paul White, is the person that actually made that call.
Okay.
So, and he's the assistant superintendent of operations and also oversees facilities.
Wow.
So, even upon speaking with them, so Dr. McNeely actually went to try to get to the bottom of it. She went to her other board members because they are the governing body.
Right.
To state, hey, we need to actually get those students back. She spent 2 separate school board meetings, so that's over a month's time frame, actually rallying with them and trying to advocate, giving very impassioned pleas to ask them to actually return the bus. Each time that she addressed it, it was never met with any response from any of the board members. It was basically virtually ignored.
Wow.
One school board meeting which really stood out to me is there was a parent that was there that lives on the west side of town, and he was there to be very thankful because his child was able to maintain their school bus, although it was less than 2 miles.
Wow.
So, and even with him, I will say they didn't respond to anything that he said, but the fact that he was able to come and say, hey, I still have my bus, so this wasn't the same across the district, is what stood out. But once I saw the mom, Miss Kizzy Hill, and I actually saw her, actually I had to go back and watch her story because I actually missed it on the news.
Right, Kizzy Hill's my cousin, man. What's up, Kizzy?
So, and then, so I actually did a Facebook post and was asking people, did they actually see Dr. McNeely's speech, and just telling parents, to advocate for your children. That's how we get things done. And so Kizzy inboxed me. She, so we exchanged phone numbers, and when I spoke with her, I was very impressed on all the things that she'd done in order to advocate for her son,
right.
all the steps that she'd taken, and she just wasn't giving up.
Okay.
So that's when I actually got involved. So there was another member of the community Latrell Simmons.
Okay.
And I typically don't call him by name because whenever he shows up for something in the community, it has nothing to do with his job. So he has a job in law enforcement.
Okay.
So we always try to keep those things separate.
Right.
But I reached out to him because he actually was raised and grew up in the Lake Road Terrace neighborhood.
And,
so it was
and benefited from this courtesy bus.
Absolutely. Right? So even with him, he himself went and tried to advocate and rally for the students, and he actually got nowhere. So just in conversations with a multitude of people, we were all upset. We were trying to figure out what to do in order to get the district's attention because the traditional methods weren't working.
Okay.
So in a conversation, someone that had actually talked to Mr. White stated it's too much for these kids to be walking. It's dangerous. You all are trying to increase patrols. That should let you know that this is not the right decision. And the response from Mr. White, from a few people, was, "Well, I walked every day that I went to school." Mm-hmm. And so the response is, "But times have changed so much, even not
you
just
pull yourself up by your bootstraps." I'm just not to cut you off. Did Mr. White? Did I hear that he got out and walked himself?
No, he actually
he never did that.
And actually that's how the idea for the march came about.
Okay.
So when they was talking to Mr. White, they was like, "Well, let us get out here and walk this 2 miles." So he didn't agree to walk the 2 miles. But when I heard that being put out there, I said, "You know what? Let's do that."
Nice.
So let us walk this march. Let's get other people involved. So you know what? And I even stated maybe it's not as bad as we think. So maybe if we get out here and walk, I'm diplomatic enough to say, well, maybe I'm overreacting. I get very passionate about the things that are very personal to me, so I could be overreacting. So that's what we decided to do. So we reached out to people. For me, it was so important. I went outside of Facebook. So we did marketing and things like that on Facebook, but there were personal phone calls that were made. We sent text messages. And even leading up to the march, different groups of people went out into the neighborhoods and actually knocked on doors and, let people know. And what was so surprising, many of the people who lived in the neighborhood didn't know the bus was taken because they didn't have kids that actually attended Eastside. Okay. So even the members of the neighborhood were very unaware. And they were very concerned that something had taken place. And the same feedback for everyone, well, how are the children supposed to get to school? It's dark in the mornings. It's extremely hot. So, it's dangerous on this little road. You never can tell.
There's a lot of wildlife over there, too.
Everything. So it was important to us. So once we got a bunch of different people together, there was a lot of different organizations that said, hey, we want to send a representative. We want to be a part of this. Let's rally around this issue together. So leading up to the march with the district, people started to reach out. They started sending emails to board members. They started sending emails to the superintendent. They wanted answers to questions. And what I thought was very interesting is, depending on who sent the email, the response that was given was different. And I just feel like if you felt that you're legitimate in making a decision to do something so major, everyone should automatically be on the same page. So then one of the issues that was...
Can I ask you a question real quick? As just public citizens, just how do we? Is there any way to verify the process of the responses to the emails and how they were different from different people?
Absolutely.
How do just average Joe? How do I look that up?
All you have to do is actually what's called a public records request.
Okay.
Any email that's sent from the community to a board member or members of the district is actually public record.
Wow.
So all you have to do is actually do that public records request.
And where you gonna do that at?
You just send an email. You can send it to the superintendent's office. If you call the school board and state, hey, I want to do this public records request, they'll give you the contact information. But even too, with each news reporter, once we got the media involved, each one of them would actually reach out to the school spokesperson, which is Jackie Johnson, and they would get different information from her as well.
Wow.
So one of the main factors they kept stating was, well, it's a budget issue. Immediately when it actually took place, my suggestion was reorganize the routes. You have Lake Forest, which is an elementary school that gets out at a different time than Eastside. Even if you reorganize the routes where you drop those students off and come back to Eastside, there's a way to actually give those students that bus. I talked to some parents whose kids just didn't go to school. They were considering dropping out because it was just too much. That concern for me is, like I said, I've lived in the neighborhood Gainesville has to offer. If it wasn't for me being bused to school, I wouldn't have made it out of school. And the fact of the matter is, without just the high school education, that's the basic part of it.
Right.
Life is already hard enough. It's just that much more difficult. I want people, and for me, it's more frustrating when you live in poverty or when you live in the hood and other places. What we have to focus on and deal with is very different than kids in other neighborhoods with different families. Right. So if I'm already not motivated to go to school because I don't see the purpose in it, because let's be honest, everybody's not going to college. Or I could be a person that's smart enough to go to college, but that's not preached in my house. That's not given to me at school.
Right.
All I know is I'm just getting there in order to get through. So if I'm already not engaged enough to go to school, and now you tell me I need to walk 4 miles in a day, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
So that's when you start to look at, skipping school, even to walking past. You might see people that are doing drug deals and say, you know what, this is much easier than what I have to endure.
Right.
Then often people don't realize a lot of our kids get to schools with teachers that don't understand their plight.
Right.
So I got to walk 2 miles in order for me to be mistreated, and is what I feel, or to be virtually ignored. It just won't work. So it's a major issue, and the bus is something that's necessary.
Right. Well, look, I know that's not the end of it. We're going to play a little bit of music. We're going to come back and we're going to pick up right there on exactly what was the result of all this, and not just that, what we can do now and in the future, so just for our kids' sake. I also want to talk about a little bit, because you was just mentioning how y'all was knocking door to door, and some of the neighbors didn't know anything about it. You guys were doing the neighborhood cleanup, right? During that time, right? I thought so. So we definitely you can even touch on that a little bit, maybe. First, we'll throw it back though a little bit with Jagged Edge, what I Gotta Be with, and then how about Brandy, What I Want to Be Down. Y'all keep it locked right here, man. WBT 90.1 FM B. You're doing so good. After all this is done, maybe we could start doing like just like tips or something like that. Maybe weekly or something like that.
Sounds good.
You know what I mean? Even if I gotta record you or something, you can't make it. But we got a studio around the corner. You can always we can do like 10 of them in a day. That way you ain't gotta come every week if you don't want to, and just play them. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
I try to do something like that with different things. Different.
That's so because I just want to reprogram our people. We don't realize that. I hear a lot of people. I see a lot of things like they always say, "Well, I want to go to Atlanta." They don't realize that Atlanta's a place, and the mindset of the people is different. If we change that here, we can be whatever we want to be.
Right.
So
well,
always helpful with tips to get people to look at things in a different way.
That sounds good to me. I really want to do what parents can do, really.
Absolutely.
I know you're real big on that. And just even community members, what they can do to help support the kids. I definitely want to, exactly when the next meeting is and all that.
For the school board meeting?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't have it this Tuesday, so it's Tuesday the 17th.
Every Tuesday?
Every other Tuesday.
Every other Tuesday?
Mm-hmm. At 6 o'clock.
Alright, cool. We'll definitely talk about that. Where we leave off at? Give them codes. We had a fridge in here. It kind of died on us.
It happens.
Yeah.
Everybody I know that get a good one, like when the students get ready to leave in December to January, you get one for little or nothing.
Wow. That's what I need to do. But, yeah.
Let me text my son. I know he's like, where is this lady?
So who was the guy that walked it, though? I know Simmons did, but did somebody else walk?
Pastor Smith from
Carl
is that
Smith.
Greater Butler?
Yeah,
that's
I gotta go see him today.
So he walked it. That was pretty much it. That was black men.
Okay. Well, I thought one of the school board members or something did.
No, Dr. Manilli is the only school member that came.
We got anybody else like? What's it like? As far as like political party, as far as the five on the
It's everybody. Everybody's a Democrat except for April Griffin.
Really?
Mm-hmm. But they Democrats on paper, if you ask me.
Fiscally,
yes.
Republican. Okay. And when's re-election and all that?
Who is it?
When's re-election for all that?
So I'll talk about that. So re-election is actually coming up in November for 3 of the school board seats.
So when you go in, you want to get a certain amount of time. When you go in, a certain term.
Yes.
How that works?
Everybody got 3 years.
Everybody got different, depending on when they come in.
So 3 of them are up for re-election this time.
How long
and
is
then
the term?
23. It's 3 years. But then the next 2 will get elected in 2020. So it's 2018 and then 2020. And do y'all have a way of, in order to track like your viewership, to know that you're reaching everyone? Because I didn't actually know this about this radio station.
Right.
I mentioned that wasn't the girl.
We just getting.
So I've listened to it since then. So that's what I listen to.
Right. We just getting registered now.
Okay.
We're a low power station, but we just getting registered with Nielsen.
Okay.
To report, you know, so they report our ratings and how we're doing. I think we're doing really well as far as listeners. You know,
well, once I actually found out about it, I started to listen. I checked it out, and so often some of the new music about, but pretty much most of the things that you play, I'm like, okay, where has this been? So it's not nearly as commercialized as the my major station.
But that's what I think our advantage is.
And then there's such a time span in the different ages of the music. I'm like, oh, okay. So I do like that because it just brings back some real memories.
Well, traditionally we were oldies and R&B station, and then we just kind of a couple years ago switched to hip hop during the day, and then even more recently we switched to more R&B during the day. I still play hip hop. I definitely play hip hop at 5:00. With you being on today, I'm playing more R&B than I usually would, but that's just what I feel like we should play right now. Like I got the kid from the Dream Defenders coming in at 5.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Some of their members actually participated in the rally.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, they're really good.
Yes.
Yeah, he's coming in today and he's talking about the Spencer thing and yeah, you got like Kendrick Lamar and stuff like that for him. You know
I listen to him.
Right.
So
I'm sure you do. I just,
definitely him.
I be thinking about who listening. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. Probably getting it wrong. I'll figure it out. Yeah, so yeah, we good. We'll do one more segment. Not one more, but one more segment about the length of that one.
Okay.
And then probably a segment before the hour's over, 5 minutes, a little shorter one than one. You know,
okay.
But I definitely want to get. You know, we got plenty of time. Plenty of time.
Now what is that with Cheryl Underwood on it?
We played the Cheryl Underwood show here.
Okay.
She had a convention in Jacksonville last year, which the owner he attended. None of us did, but I think I wasn't even working on it.
My how time flies.
Say that again?
I said my how time flies.
Right. Why you say that?
Oh, just because that was just last year before you actually got here.
Right.
On the east side of Gainesville at 1308 East University Avenue, home of the tailgate.
Oh.
Scoreboard. Dance's Liquor is dedicated to serving the community with brand-named liquor, beer, and wine. That's Dance's Liquor, a community business conveniently located on the east side of Gainesville at 1308 East University Avenue, home of the tailgate party and the Florida Gators Community Scoreboard. A proud sponsor programming heard daily on WNBT 90.1 FM The Beat. Gainesville and surrounding area, you are invited to join us as we celebrate the Sugar Hill Community's annual homecoming reunion on Saturday, October 21st, 2017 with a parade starting at 9 a.m. There will be lots of floats, the Eastside High School Alumni Band, and much, much more. Starting at 10 a.m., the stage will be set for entertainment, which will include gospel music, R&B music, dancers, praise dancers, games for the children, prizes for all ages, and giveaway gifts. The Sugar Hill Community's annual homecoming reunion will be hosted by Master DJ Dr. Feelgood from Atlanta, Georgia, plus Fred Washington from Atlanta.
I've never heard of him.
Casey Bryant performing
Dr. Feelgood.
co-MC. There will also be special
coming out of the city here.
It's that Master DJ. I've never heard of him.
Along with the Williams family and the songbird of the South, Miss Cynthia Jordan. Also Al Williams and Little Miss Nyla McGuire from Atlanta and many others. There will be lots of food and fun for everyone. So please come join us for the Sugar Hills Community's annual homecoming reunion. Saturday, October 21st, 2017, starting at 9 a.m. For additional information, contact Sheila Walden, events chair.
But I appreciate you. I really do, man. I really think that it'd be good to have you come by. From time to time.
I'll be happy
Just
to.
keep us, keep us informed, abreast of what everything you got going on. Not you, but you kind of speak for the community, man. So, I think it'd be big.
Oh, so I want to bridge that gap.
Yes, man. PTA, you got a son at Fort Locke, huh?
I have 2 daughters at 4 o'clock and a son at VO. What grade is your son in?
My son is in the 8th grade.
Okay.
Plays on the basketball team. But yeah.
He would probably know my goddaughter, Amaya.
Right. And my daughter, I got a daughter there too. She's in the 7th.
Okay. What's her name?
Her name is Bianca.
She's friends with one of my daughters because I've heard that name.
Yeah.
My daughter texted me shortly. I'm saying, which one of y'all is it? Because one of I've heard was mentioned that.
Yeah.
Hey, don't you know we got the streets on lock? We are the all-new 90.1
I'll tell you which one in a
FM,
second.
the
So I nicknamed my daughters. One I call Amber because she's so prim and proper. And the other one I nicknamed Shaquita. So I'll let you know.
Y'all hear who that is back there? That ain't nobody but Miss Chanae Jackson hanging out here who we talking about talking about what we talking about. Anyway, hey, don't go nowhere, man. We hanging out with Miss Chanae Jackson right here, the community activist leader and mother. But right now I got Chris Brown with privacy. Yo, don't go nowhere, man. Keep it locked right here.
I ain't doing
My bad, I should have gave you a heads up.
But I nicknamed the other one Shaquita because she get them.
Yeah, one ain't Amber.
Yeah.
That's what's up. Alright, so people move on. Good. Yeah, they doing that, what it's called, no Nazis at UF.
Mm-hmm.
Have them come in and talk about that.
I want them to realize, though, that the Spencer, they picked here for a reason. And they picked here because they knew that people were going to be in an uproar. So the uproar that we're in, we're giving them free airspace.
Well, it's I don't know. Maybe they could have took it down south or something. I don't know. But I think Gainesville is probably the place to bring it. But the thing about it is, I agree with you to the fullest. You said they came in for a reason, and I mean it's right now it's like a legal chess match. You know what I'm saying? But the thing about it is UF really had a decision to make. You know what I'm saying?
They made the wrong one.
And they made the wrong one.
They absolutely did that.
I mean,
they made the wrong one.
You finna spend more money protecting.
But that's the reason that
than
they
what
do
you would
it.
have got sued for.
Exactly. That's the reason that they did it. That's
so
the point that they're
really
making.
on them.
And now in Georgia, I can show you right in Atlanta where they're still doing KKK rallies, and it's normal and it's not an issue. It's because of the hysterics.
Right. Well, you know they did the same thing at Auburn, but Auburn denied them and they sued them, and that's supposed to be the boogeyman. You know what I'm saying? But like I say, well they got $30,000. You done spend another $100 on
$500,000.
Yeah. See, that's
it's $500,000.
So it's somebody on the staff that do that. You know what I'm saying? Some accountant or whatever. So they had a decision to make and they made it. So
well, UF has a great deal of racism. People don't realize. Even like right now, they have law professors that are black that have ongoing litigation right now because of racism and discrimination. And so a lot of people don't realize.
Well, I know about the history. I know about the present.
No,
but
present.
Well, definitely the president. They have the worst diversity rates among students in the state of Florida in any public school. But I had Commissioner Golston up here when they were talking about just how it was in the 70s out there, and not just that, but how UF was the last school in the South, in the Southeast to even integrate. You know what I mean? Like they weren't with it here. And then somebody else put it in perspective for me as far as the public schools, how FAM was the black school in Florida State was a woman's school. You know what I'm saying? Up until like the 60s or 50s or something. And this was the white male school up Florida. So I mean, it's not a coincidence.
And it runs deep.
Right,
And that's why school systems so bad. They went to neighborhood schools, and that's why even like now the disparity in education, the gap between black kids and white kids is the highest in the state out of all 67 counties.
You told me that. You told me that. But make sure you mention that on the end. Let's go back on, man. Welcome back, y'all. WMBT 90.1 FM The Beat, man. Shoot, 17 minutes to 4, man. We're going to zoom through this hour real quick, man. Anyway, I'm hanging out with Miss Chanae Jackson Baker, man, and she just hit me with a whole wealth of knowledge around here, man. It's such a pleasure to have you here. We want to pick up on, we were talking about the Eastside rally, March rally issue, the March issue, excuse me, on the whole thing with courtesy busing. And where you left off was, you know, you were pointing out that after having different sources of people asking the same board members these same questions, you start getting very varying answers. So can you take it from there and just let us know exactly what happened up until then, up until now, and how it all went down?
So what happened is one of the moms who actually is the president of the PTA at Eastside. Okay. And because of IB, so I'll just say the mom is not necessarily representative of the population. Okay. So once she went and she actually spoke with Mr. White, she came back and said, well, oh no, the children here are not being treated differently, and we need to buy into this half-cent sales tax so we can get our kids what they needed. And so as I was addressing with her, no, that's not the case. They just gave Yos $250,000 for bathrooms, so we can find the money for the things that we want. And as I conveyed to the mom, Eastside is dear to my heart because I'm an Eastside graduate, but my kids go to school in West Gainesville. Right. So I'm not making it up. And when I tell you that the West Gainesville school is getting something that Eastside is not, it's because I'm fully engaged, my ears to the ground, and I'm an active participant in the things that happen. Yes, and so one of the things that I was addressing with her is it's called what's called an issue of equity. We don't want things to be equal. We want things to be equitable. And the difference between equity and equality is, and with equity, some kids require more resources and they need more things. Okay. So even as, like, I have kids right now that were going out of school out of zone before we moved into the zone. I had the means to drive them to the school to keep them in the school that I wanted them in. Yeah. Many kids, and even that was one of the parents' frustrations, her car was broke down. I had another mom who was really upset and embarrassed because she felt like she should be able to do for her child. And sometimes the consensus is, well, it's not that big of a deal because these parents don't care. When these parents do care, they just don't know how to advocate. Right. They've been shut out or shut down, and so their thing is, well, I have to accept this because I don't realize that there's something else. So that's where we came up with the actual march. So with that, we got people involved. I want people to know that with the march, the only reason that it was successful is because people showed up in numbers. So there was more than 100 people that participated in the actual walk. And that's outside of that, there were people that were sending emails and things like that. So for me, it's important to point that out because a lot of people say, well, oh, you did this, you did that. There's not a me. It's always a we. Nice. And anyone who is saying, well, I did this for you and I did that, they're a part of the problem. There should never be an I. There should always be a we. And that's because there's always a level of accountability on both sides. I mean, even one of the things that I conveyed to the district is I don't want to fight, but I will if it's necessary. I believe that we all want the same thing in mind, or we say we want the same thing. So if we want all children to benefit, we should be able to get together to do that. One of the ways that our district fails us is they make all of the decisions for the parents and the students without including the parents and the students. And you'll always fall short because many things look great on paper and many things are wonderful in theory, but until you actually go, even for me, it was humbling. But like I stated, everybody in every ghetto neighborhood, those are my people. Right. So I feel like I know fully what's going on. And when I heard that mom say, well, no, I feel embarrassed, that's an emotion I never even realized that somebody could actually feel. Right. And it's those things, you know, and even too, I bring up Kizzy Hill. I always want to thank her. Even when she went to the school board meeting after the fact, she thought that she choked up and didn't do a good job. She did an excellent job. Okay. And I want our parents to realize, as long as you're showing up and advocating for your children, that's what it takes. I fight so hard because...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Real quick, because I don't want to forget later. Tell them real quick how often and the location of these board meetings.
So the board meetings are every other Tuesday. So the last meeting was October the 3rd. So the next board meeting will be this upcoming Tuesday. It's October the 17th. Okay. They're at 6 p.m. and they normally last about an hour or a little bit more.
Okay, this is at the school board. Okay.
And because it's we're covered under the Sunshine Law, it's a public meeting. So you can actually stream online. So you don't necessarily have to show up, but you do need to be aware of what's happening.
Right.
Or you can actually go back and watch it online in order to know what's going on. And I tell people, you can use me as a resource. They can text me, they can call me, they can inbox me and say, hey, what did I miss at this meeting? And it's because there's major decisions being made.
Okay. No, keep going.
Okay. And so I want people to know me as a resource. One of the issues that we have when I go to a meeting, the consensus often is, well, parents don't care in these neighborhoods, or parents don't care that their kids are failing, and that's just not true. Right. And I know it not to be true, but we're in a day and age now, we're embarrassed if our child's not the smartest kid in the classroom. And I want people to know that each child is different. Right. Every child learns different. I tell everybody that when it comes to my own children, I have one that's brilliant. He can go in and take a test without ever studying. But that's the child I worry about. Right. The child that I have that is quote unquote not book smart is the one I don't worry about at all. He's been given the things, the measures in order to be able to be successful. He works hard. He'll be the one that's going to make it in life.
That's absolutely right.
Many successful people are not necessarily book smart, especially if your child is creative.
Diligent.
We got to get to the point where we're introducing our kids to the things that they like to do, because that's where we're going to find out what actually makes them successful. I tell people, even in our culture, we're not taught about entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship is where you build wealth. Oh, yeah. And when I mean that, we have in our mindset, well, I need to get a good job and keep it. When you have a good job and keep it, no matter how hard you work, you make the same amount of money. If you're an entrepreneur, the harder you work, the more you dictate what you make. And when you're passing down wealth, I'm not even just talking about money, but you're passing down a mindset to actually empower your children. Everybody has something that they're good at that they can turn into something where they can actually make a living, but we've been indoctrinated or programmed to be in fear, not to actually step out and do those things. Right. And
I agree to the fullest.
And so it's just those things. So for me, it's very important to advocate, to give people a lot of knowledge. I'm a black woman, first and foremost. People automatically judge me before I open my mouth to speak. So it's not just me that has to go and legitimize you, that has to legitimize yourself. I have to do it as well. I'm very purposeful and very meticulous. When I started to show up to meetings, I never told anybody what I did, what boards I sat on, or anything. I sat and I listened. I surveyed the room and different things like that. When people, and somebody always said, you're that person, if somebody challenges your intelligence, you're going to make them regret it. It's not a purposeful thing, but that's what it is, because we spend our whole lives proving to people that we're good enough, that we're smart enough. And one of those reasons is we lack a lot of positive representation. And, parents, you have to say, hey, I have a son who will never pass the FSA. And it's that same son, though, that gets A's and B's that I don't worry about. So parents, there's an organization, the Alachua County Educational Task Force. Those are people that are passionate. It is their heart and their soul and their mission, and they get nothing out of it to ensure that our kids are successful. Right now in Alachua County, we have what's called the biggest achievement gap. And that means the gap between how white students are doing compared to how black students are doing is so high that we have the highest in the state. Wow. So black children in Alachua County they come in last in performance in the state. That shouldn't be when you have the University of Florida in Santa Fe College here. Wow. So that means there's a disconnect. But parents fail to realize that if we actually show up and are part of the decisions that are made, we can actually change that so our kids are being successful. They're not just going to school to learn how to take a test, but they can actually be engaged and excited about going to school.
Wow. Well look, I love everything you said. That was really good. I ain't want to stop you. But let's get back to the march. And I want to talk about, I want to talk about, because you had some parents that got out and want to march, and that had some issues with the obstacles of
So let's talk about the march.
How dangerous.
So even when we set out, we started on our walk, it was 97 degrees.
Wow.
We did not make it up. We actually got out and looked to see what the weather was. It was 97 degrees. When you walk, most of the path that they walk, there is no shade until you actually get on University Avenue, close to Morningside Nature Center.
Wow. Once
you get to the part where there is shade, there are so many trees and bushes. All I could think about was snakes and rats and different things like that. And in a panic. Also, someone did a sex offender search, and not just right there on that path, but in that entire particular area, there were 91 registered sex offenders. Then we saw a major police presence. So we thought the police were there because we were actually doing the walk. And so in order to coordinate that, we actually found out that there was an escaped convict that was on the loose at the time that we were actually doing the march. And then as we finally got to almost to our destination, which was Fred Cone Park, one of the walkers actually passed out. And I mean passed out to the point she had to be rushed to the hospital. They couldn't get her from the heat and the exhaustion. And I want people to understand, we had people that were in vehicles that were circulating that were giving us cold water and things like that. And that's what occurred. Imagine students walking with a 40-pound backpack and trying to get to school. After that walk, who wants to go home and do homework? You don't want to go do anything.
Sound like Boys in the Hood or something.
Yeah,
man.
I tell people, I said, when you tell people all the things that happened, they would have thought that we planned it.
Right.
We didn't plan it. It's really what happened, and it's what occurred.
So what came of all that? I mean, just to let the people know what happened in the resolution.
So what my thing is, I was happy that the district did give the bus back. I was upset that it was done at the 11th hour. They actually were in talks while we were at the march.
You had to go through.
Right. And it literally was probably just a few hours before the actual march where they were coordinating on how to get the morning route back. I was upset with a few people because they were going in to have what I call closed door meetings. And even too, they were at the march and they was like, well, I did this and I did that. And as I conveyed to them at the march, and I want to convey again, there is no I. This is we. If you agreed to have a meeting with someone knowing that they wanted to meet with us, they wanted a meeting because of the march, and you had nothing to do with the coordination of that, everybody should have had an opportunity to have a seat at the table.
And that's some accountability on you too.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And my issue is the reason that everyone should have a same seat at the table at the same time is, as we're getting the differing stories, it helps to give the school board a level of accountability because they're in the room with a lot of different stakeholders at the same time. So that means they can't tell one person one thing and tell another person another thing. They're going to have to be transparent. They're going to have to be upfront. They're going to have to be honest. And that's the reason that is so important. So by the time we got to the school board meeting on Tuesday, because we were going to go protest there, go with signs and everything, they actually resolved it where the bus would be back in the morning and in the afternoon. So the school board meeting was on October the 3rd, so they let us know that the buses would start back on October the 9th. So on the 9th, parents in the neighborhood were full well expecting for their children to get on the bus. Well, I have to be honest and say, this morning was the first morning they were able to get on the bus. The children should have been notified. So per the assistant superintendent and the director of transportation, a letter was sent to the school to send out to the students. Well, the letter never got to the students. So students were showing up to the bus stop thinking it was the same stop. I mean, it was not. The bus driver, as we were coordinating back and forth, stated they were going to a stop, but no children were actually there. So even after some emails and things back and forth with myself, and then Mom Kizzy Hill, she's back advocating on the back end some more. She did some phone calls. They actually got on the phone with her. They went over the GPS. They did a lot of different things. I'll be honest, I was up front with Mr. White, as a part of your job description, I went and pulled the job description off of the district's website. It's to collaborate. It's to work with the community. And I got to say, once I actually sent him that email, he emailed me back. He wasn't just apologetic, but he was very detailed on what he had to say. He gave full clarity on what was going on and how to get it resolved. Right. And this morning, he took it a step further. When that bus showed up, he was on that bus. Okay. So, therefore, to know firsthand that those kids were able to get their bus back.
Yeah, and this guy, he's the assistant
superintendent.
And what's his name? Paul White.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's just be happy Paul White did what we paid him to do.
Absolutely.
Let's touch on a little bit of. You already mentioned the meetings. If you can mention that again when they are, just for the people who just.
So again, the meetings, I think it's considered the 1st and the 3rd, but don't quote me on that. But it's every other Tuesday. So the next meeting is October the 17th at 6 p.m.
Nice. And also, there's re-elections coming up for the board.
Absolutely. Right? So what happens is there's 5 board members, and I just have to be upfront and honest. There's only one board member that advocates for our people on a regular basis, and that's Dr. Lynette McNeely. And I want to point out to people, she's passionate about it. She's consistent. If she says she's going to do something, she'll do it. If she tells you she's going to follow up, she'll follow up. And that's what we need advocating for our children. She doesn't care what things look like on paper. She's very into the anecdotal evidence, and that's just the stories of parents and different stuff like that. And she's into trying to right every wrong that there is and to make sure that every child is getting the education that they need. But the issue is she needs help. So even when there's things that she disagrees with, because she's the only person on the board, she can be outvoted 4-1. And that's where we come in as a community. We have to, number one, be knowledgeable about what's actually going on pertaining to the school district. 2, we got to realize that we can't leave it in the hands of someone who doesn't understand us. So we have to have our seat at the table. We got to make our voices heard. We got to be a part of that. I hear parents say that they work. There was a time I was working 96 hours a week.
Wow.
I needed to know what was going on with my children. And, you know, that's the point. Even if you're leaving it to teachers, you still want to know that. I feel like this, the manner in which I love my kids, I love them so much. Just to start, and that's fine if they come dressed to the nines. But if you want your child to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, not to be a statistic, you got to get involved in their education.
Amen.
And so as elections come up, the person there's one candidate that's actually already running, and that's Tina Certain. And I support her fully because she's consistent, she's knowledgeable, she got the facts, and she's another person. She was raised right on 5th Avenue. Okay. So for her, this is personal. And she knows the life that she was able to make for herself because she got a good quality public school education. Okay. She's one that goes and knocks on doors. She's the person that helped to coordinate that march. She's very upfront, and she's very passionate, and she goes before that board, and she rallies and advocates for our children. But she needs us. We all need each other, even too when there's a parent meeting or something, to show up. You don't have to go to the school board because we understand that it is intimidating, but with her organization, they try to have parent meetings so parents can come in there and say, this is what I'm having an issue with. Okay. How can you help me? Awesome. This is what I don't like about the school board. This is what I can do. Because when parents give the information that they need, they can develop the plan and be able to get it pushed through. But what's happening now is when she goes and says, this is what our kids need, the next state is, if that's the case, where are the parents? So parents need to vote. If they're not registered, they can call me, they can text me, they can inbox me, they can come on my Facebook wall. I can let you know how to get registered to vote, and then you actually got to show up to vote. Ironically, you don't even have to go to the polls to vote when it's time. You can actually do a mail-in ballot where they'll actually get it and they'll count it for you. But in order for us to change the things that we don't like, we all have to play a role. I know we've been programmed to believe that our vote doesn't count, but it absolutely does. People that are winning because people are not turning out to vote. You're only getting about 10 to 12% of the population is actually showing up. Wow. So the fact of the matter is, if we actually show up, who we want to be elected that can, and we can actually get people in there that are actually fighting for us. So if I have to work that 96 hours a week, I can focus on that because I can be content knowing that somebody is fighting for me.
Wow.
So, and that's it. So we have Tina running. There's 2 other seats that are up. We're hoping that somebody else that will come that'll be great to actually run for those positions. I want to do it now because I am focused on being a mom.
Right.
So, and I actually like being in the community. So at this point, I don't want to be an elected official, but there's some great people that I actually support, you know, that are looking toward running. And I, you know, other names that I do want to drop are Alicia Magruder, and she's actually running against State Rep Keith Perry. She's very diligent, she's very consistent, she's very open, she's very passionate, and she wants to see a genuine difference. And she gets it. You know, we got Ty Loud. She's supposed to be filing today. I'm throwing it out there. I don't know if she made it, but that's the point. Her heart and her passion is in it. And that's what we need. We don't need people that look like candidates or say that they're candidates or say what they're doing. We need people who are showing us by their actions what they plan to do and how they're getting it done.
Wow. Well, hey, I'm going to ask you about the task force because we got to get up out of here. But
okay.
real quick, mention the task force and how people can join.
Okay, so it's the Alachua County Education Task Force.
Okay. And
what it is this Dr. Deidre Houston. She actually works at the University of Florida, but she looks like us. Nice. She's still very passionate. I'm a Miss Tina Certain, and then there's another woman. She's probably more passionate than we are, Miss Ann Perturba.
Okay.
And what Perturba? I'm sorry, Ann, if you're listening. I mispronounced your name. But what they've gotten together to do, they are a dynamic group of people. So they have the data to prove what's lacking. They have the actual plan that they need the district in order to implement. They actually have the know-how, they have the zeal, and they have the consistency to actually change the whole game. And they can do it, but the only way that they can do it is by getting our support in order to get the district to do what we need them to do. So the manner in which you join is, you can contact me at 352-553-8968 so I can connect you with them. We're right now trying to get together a conference for parents to actually come and attend to get the additional information. They can email me at C as in cat, L as in lion, Jackson, JACKSON 5677 at Gmail, or they can inbox me or find me on Facebook. My name does start with a C, so it's Chanae, and it's Jackson Baker. And what we'll do is connect them with the people that can actually get things done. And they want those members. They want to support you and what it is that you actually need.
That's the real difference maker, right?
Yes.
Hey, it's really been a pleasure. I should have brought you on for way longer, but we know we got a whole lot to talk about in the future. So that's all. I ain't going nowhere. But anyway, man, I really appreciate you coming through, Miss Chanae Jackson. Like, it's really been a treat.
Thank you.
On behalf of WBT
it was a pleasure.
The Jerkins Show. Hey, so I think we're gonna wrap it up there. I just want to make sure we got everything. I think we did, but like I said, thanks again for stopping by. I really appreciate it, and it's the Jerkins Show, y'all. Don't go nowhere. That was perfect. I was trying to find.